Okay, yeah, I'm back. I realized I took my hat off. I still got my red shirt underneath. It's like 30 degrees outside, so it's time to bundle up. But anyway, so we're back, and it's cold. It's very cold. Last question. When we left off saying this will be video part 3. This is concerning light speed. We were going over the letter that we got from Bureau of Secret Intelligence, as it were, with questions. So it says, concerning light speed, how can we be sure that our maximum velocities are reached at only 186,000 miles per second, or are they? And that's where we left off. I said that I disagreed that our maximum velocities were reached at 186,000 miles per second due to the fact that photons, or light particles, move at 186,000 miles per second, which is the fastest known material that we have. You have the breakdown of photons, which move or accelerate at a rate beyond 186,000 miles per second that they're measuring now, even in the Large Hadron Colliders. So certainly the possibility exists for reaching speeds at over 186,000 miles per second. The interesting thing about light is not the only thing out there. Light in our dimension, as it pertains to our laws of physics, gravity, light speed, and things like that. Certainly, some of the findings and the benchmarks for all physics, Mr. Einstein's theories, E equals mc squared, theory of relativity, concerning even time travel and light speed and things like that. But those are laws that exist, that are our physical principles, or laws that exist within our realm of physics. You have to take into mention we're one galaxy. We're the Milky Way galaxy. We're separated from east to west, if you will, by almost 100,000 light years just in our own galaxy. So it would take at 186,000 miles per second, it would take 100,000 human years to get from one end of our galaxy to the other. The next closest galaxy, Andromeda M31, our sister galaxy. I don't remember now, but I'm just off the hip. I think it's like some 30,000 light years away from that. So those are two galaxies. We're talking about in a universe within billions and billions of galaxies. That's one universe. You have to take into consideration parallel universe theory. That is or string theory. That is that a universe is connected to a universe, which is connected to a universe, connected to a universe. It's the infinite bubble. It's the cosmic bubble of space. It is the O in God. It is capital G. It is the O, and then it's the D. It's the Alpha, the Omega, the beginning and the end. In other words, there isn't necessarily a beginning and an end. There is always the I am. Just like he said, when Moses said, "Who shall I say sent me?" God said, "I am." He was asking for a first name or proper name, and God said, "I am that I am." Is that good enough for you? So I think that as it pertains to this, or rather as it goes for this question, says, can we be sure that our maximum velocities are reached at 186,000 miles per second? We're probably in agreement that they're not reached at 186,000 miles per second. If I think of going twice the speed of light, does that accomplish double the potential of light speed as it relates to time travel? That's interesting to think about. If you take 186,000 miles per second and you double that speed, so if time travel is possible at 186,000 miles per second, or light speed, if I was to double light speed, does that double the distance traveled within or does that double the potential, I guess is the question, for time travel to be doubled? Does it double the potential? But what you're really saying is, you're not asking does it double the potential for light speed or for time travel, because it no longer equivalates to speed, and it no longer equivalates to time. It's not time over distance. It's not velocity. It does not have direction. So I think what we're really looking at is if you doubled the potential for time travel, really does that get it any different? I suppose that in some realms, or in some physical practicalities, it does. I could only imagine that you would begin to particleize. My thought was, one day I'm sitting here and you're sitting here, and we're in a spaceship and we're approaching the speed of light. So we're at 999 miles per second. So I can see you, you can see me. Once we approach the speed of light, I hear you. And this is very interesting to think about, because at 186,000 miles per second, I look over and I don't see you anymore. But if I reach over, I can touch you, which means I feel you, and I can hear you talking to me. Hey, Dusty, still there? Yeah, I'm here. You there? Yeah, I'm still here. I can't see you. I know, it's weird. Oh, you're there. I feel you. I can feel your skin, right? And I can hear you, but I can't see you. So what is that really like? A lot of people would equivalent that to kind of like God. It is God. It is exactly who God is. It is spirit. We are spirit, but we are flesh also. But it's really interesting to think about, because if we're approaching that speed and you begin to vaporize, so to speak, it's not because your skin or your flesh is going anywhere. It's just that reflection is not being allowed off of your surface. So if we're going beyond light speed, light never has enough time to reflect or refract or be absorbed into your skin or be absorbed into my eyes, for that matter. So I can't see you. So I'll be able to hear you and I'll be able to touch you, but I can't see you. Now, how weird is that? That's exactly like God, isn't it? It says, does this pertain to time travel? We already discussed that. And then there's a third question here, and the anonymous writer says, in other words, prove or disprove that time travel is possible. We'll probably have to save that for a whole nother video when we have time. I'm very tired. It's almost it's like 4:23 in the morning. What's up, 4:20? What's up, 4:20? So then he goes on to say, and then he says, okay, now according to Christian beliefs, it says, according to Christian beliefs, if you ask God the Father for anything in His name or in Jesus' name, it says all of His promises supposedly, according to the Bible, and I touched on this earlier on the last video, on video number 2. This is video number 3. It says, are yes, yes, and amen. He says, what do you think that means or has ever meant? At least according to the Christian Bible. And then he says, is that necessarily true, though? I don't know. It's really weird to think about. If you go back to a time in your life, say it's an important memory, it's 15, 16, 17 years old. Say somebody chooses 16 or 17 years old. Now think about that. What you were doing. Okay, something that happened. I'm thinking about it. I was in Oregon. I was standing in the high school, and I was on the corner smoking a cigarette. If I have the ability to go back in time, I can bump into myself. Okay? But if from where you're at right now, let's say you're looking at me on the computer, okay, you're probably sitting. If you think about going back in time, not bumping into yourself, but if you think about going back in time, you're really going back into your own body, number 1. So that's spiritually speaking. Number 2, let's just think about this. Let's just think about time travel, going back in time to where you were at that time, what you were doing. Okay? Now, if I associate an activity with what you were doing back then, time travel becomes really relevant and really very easy to solve, because this is what happens. If I associate an activity, like say you were with somebody or you're doing something. For me, I was outside of the high school smoking a cigarette. Okay? If I think about time travel and I think about that time travel is possible, and I think about that. Okay, well, whatever your thought is, think about that for a second. Now think about time travel there. Okay, that means that time travel is not only possible, it means that time travel is happening and has already happened. Because once time travel becomes possible for you and for us, when we go back in time, okay, and doesn't that mean that we've already come back in time? It's kind of like saying Back to the Future. Where are you coming back from? Coming back from the future. If I go back in time and I think about that now, and I know time travel is possible, then I know that time travel. Then I know. Watch this. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that time travel was possible then. But what I had not obtained then that I know now was knowledge. Right? It was the knowledge, and that's the same thing that the Bible's talking about in Genesis, where He says that they ate of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's the knowledge. He says in another place, He says, "My people perish for lack of knowledge." They were saying the same thing. The knowledge that I have gained now to be able to travel back in time would have been or should have been the exact same knowledge that I had back then. But if I now have that knowledge, the foreknowledge now of time travel, and going back, then doesn't that mean that as soon as I've gone back that I've already achieved that same knowledge that I had then? So what happened was this. I forgot. And that's really what the basis is all about. If you see all things that are known, all information that is known, there's a really good video on YouTube. It's called "What is DMT?" or dimethyltryptamine. And he says, I saw and I could see all information that was known. If you've ever seen all information that was known, if you were God or if you were spirit, you've seen all information that was known. The only thing that happened between here and there, or between then and now, was forgetfulness. That's the only thing that happens, because if I can go back in time now and I think about it, how come I didn't think about it then? Well, it wasn't brought to my knowledge, right? It wasn't brought to my forethought or my frontal thinking. If I go back now and I share with myself the same knowledge that I have now about time travel and how to do it, the knowledge that I would have gained there is not necessarily the knowledge that I have now. Why? Because I'm in two different times. I don't know. It's really weird. Go back and share with yourself that memory. Go back and share with yourself that memory at 16 years old. Share with yourself now the knowledge that you have to be able to time travel. Share with yourself the fact that the knowing that time travel is possible. Now you've just shared that with yourself. That feels like you've shared that with yourself twice. But having shared that with yourself now, wouldn't you have already known that? Anyway, so I don't know. The answer is not being informed to the highest degree of accuracy. I hesitate to articulate for fear that I may deviate from the true cause of rectitude. So to summarize, I do not know. So then one of the last ones is, he says, do you believe E equals mc squared, which everybody's heard that. It's energy equals, it's mass times circumference squared, which equals energy. It's not E equals mc squared. It's mass times circumference squared is the production of energy, or is the equals to. In other words, it's the output. If you take mass times circumference squared, what you have or how you obtained it is the E, is the energy. So that's what he's saying. He says, do you believe E equals mc squared is a correct philosophical or mathematical equation? Necessarily. I like the word necessarily, because that's what we're all about here. And then he says to me, and this is really kind of candid, but he says to me, where is God's love? And he's saying, where is God's? And it's spelled L-O-V, capital L-O-V. So he's saying, he's taking into account that, hey, God may or may not exist, but if God does exist, then, and E equals mc squared, then where is God's L-O-N-V? Does that make sense? Because he's making reference to or alluding to the fact that the Bible says that God is love. It says very specifically, God is love. So he says, if God is love and the E equals mc squared, which is the energy, where is God's L-O-N-V? And you know, since we got this letter, this was dated Friday, May 27, 2011, 8:57 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Since I've got the letter, I've been trying to find the L, the O, and the V. And this is what I came up with. If that's true, if it's true that God is love, and if it's true that the E is really the portion of God that was figured out, the E equals mc squared, which is some of the basic laws of physics that we know of now. And we have to talk about we have to go back to the way we're thinking our theories. Remember this: the Old Testament, according to the Old Testament, the books of the Pentateuch, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers, right? Is what Christians consider the books of the law. So is it possible that the L has always and forever represented the law? Most people believe that the saving grace of Jesus Christ came when he died on the cross. So then that by grace you are saved, not by the law. The Christian ideology is that you are only saved by grace, you're not saved by the law. And the reason why is because all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. So in other words, there's no one who has never stolen, there's no one who has ever not lied, there's no one who has ever not committed adultery, there's no one who has ever, and so on and so forth. But if it's true then that God is love, and you are really looking for the L, the O, and the V, these are some ideas that I came up with, so I thought I'd share with you. In mathematics, the L functions as number theory. And let me just scroll. Give me just a second. Let me scroll down to something here because I saw something that I thought might be able to help. Okay, never mind. Okay, so here's what I was going to say. In mathematics, the L always... I'm going to take this off. I'm probably like, hey, nice hair, dude. Yeah, well, it's like 30 degrees outside and it's 4:30 in the morning, so shocking bright. In mathematics, the L always functions as number theory. It's basically expected to have several characteristics or properties. They said, in other words, it satisfies certain functional equations. There's an elaborate theory of what the equation should be, much of which is still kind of conjectural. But for example, the Riemann zeta function, and I won't get into that now, but it has a functional equation relating its value at the complex number s. So it's a value of 1 minus s. So in every case, basically, or in every situation, the analytical connotation is that everything is infinite. There's a really cool song by Ellie Goulding. Ellie Goulding, E-L-L-I-E-G-O-U-L-D-I-N-G. She's a phenomenal musician from England. She's absolutely gorgeous too, and very humble. She has a song called it's called Figure Eight. It's on her Halcyon CD. It's called Chase Your Love Around a Figure Eight. It's the symbol for infinity or eternity. I think it's infinity, not eternity. So the connotation is always for an infinite series definition. But everything then is a law. So if you look at the L being the law, like the Old Testament, like not being the saving grace of Jesus Christ in this case, then you look at all of the laws of what we are. And that's very interesting because all of the laws are what we are, all of the laws of physics, of the laws of gravity, the laws of light speed. And then we start to come up with these things like, hey, maybe there really is a God. Because all that's kind of starting to make sense when you mix the Holy Bible with the science, right? So for instance, you have like Henry's law. You have Newton's 3 laws of motion. Motion of objects. You have laws of acceleration and forces. You have laws of gravity. You have Einstein's theory of general relativity. You have the laws of conservation of energy. You have Dalton's law, Faraday's law. You have the law of conservation of momentum. You have the laws of thermodynamics. I mean, all of these things that all of a sudden now that aren't backing up the Bible. It's where the Bible has always been and the things the Bible has always said that we're starting to figure out are true, and that's the craziest thing. So you have what do you have? First law of thermodynamics. First law of thermodynamics. By the way, second law of thermodynamics. Third law of thermodynamics. All of these things. You have invariance of the speed of light. You have modern physics and physical law. You have classical laws you have what's called classical laws of physics. All of these things. You have so everything is the L. So I'm just thinking here that maybe the L, the O, and the V, the law of God, is maybe the law. So I'm thinking that all we needed to do is maybe find the E. The O, what is the representation of the O and the V? We'll get into that next time. And then let's see, how did he end the question? Laws of gravity, I think I said that. Laws of gravity. Let me just scroll down here. Anyway, so I think we answered that question. I'm going to do some more research on the L and the O and the V. If E truly does equal exactly what we think we've been looking for, that means we've always had the L, the O, and the V. I don't know exactly what those would represent, or the L, the O, and the V, but we've been missing the E. Maybe the E is the only thing that we've found and obtained. So maybe we're looking for it backwards, or maybe we're, in other words, in the right order. Maybe we're looking next for the V, the O, and the L. So we'll do some research on that and come back to you guys. I'm going to go to bed. It's 4:36. This is our third video post. Thanks for sticking with me. If you go outside, remember to bundle up. Most of you are probably sleeping or watching this very drunk saying, Dustin, dude, you are out of control. Until next time, guys. And, now eventually, hello? eventually now you do plan to have dinosaurs on this dinosaur tour, don't you? A little bit from Jurassic Park. Love you, mean it, ciao. Peace.